Hello and welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. This is episode 46 and it is January 26th, 27th. Oh, I'm not sure, but it's Monday, 2018. And thank you so much for checking out my podcast. If you're new, welcome. So glad that you stopped by. Hope you like it. And if you're coming back, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much to everyone who has reached out and contacted me and told me a little bit about themselves and responded to my Instagrams and, made me feel so much a part of the community. I really appreciate it. So it's been 2 weeks. Oh, I'm having my coffee. Oh, I put my lipstick on today. It's not the same lipstick that fell down the drain. That one got thrown away, but I found some lipstick, so I'm wearing lipstick today. I dressed up for you guys. As in my David's teacup with the sheep that change color, so at the end of the podcast, you'll see they're black because my coffee will be cold. But it's early-ish in the day. I'm still on coffee. I switched to tea about 1 o'clock, and I switched to decaffeinated teas and things like that. So I think I'm a little crooked, so I'm going to adjust myself and hope that I don't mess it up. I don't know if that's better. So I've been doing a lot of knitting in the last 2 weeks. Dennis and I seem to be cocooning. We just don't seem to be going out very much, and that's okay. Especially with the flu season. The flu's terrible this year around here, I guess, and, people are dying, and, just as well to stay away from all the germs. But it's been cold and damp, and, I have a lovely, cozy spot to knit, and lots I want to knit, so why go out? That's what I say. Anyway, I have things to show you. My first finished object is my 2x2 hat. Like I said in my podcast last time, I am lucky enough to get into SSK this year. I'm going in July, and they do all kinds of knit-alongs to get door prize tickets. And apparently they have lots and lots of door prizes. I haven't been before. And so they have different knit-alongs and you accumulate door prize tickets. And one of them is to knit charity hats. So this is a charity hat, and basically you bring it with you, and they give it to a local charity in Nashville. And so this is a 2x2 hat by Anne Gagnon, and I knitted in Knit Picks Brava. And actually, it feels great. And, and this is a very washable yarn, which you need to, for people who do not have good access to, cleaning facilities. You need something that if they get a chance to throw their stuff in the washer or in the dryer, you need to make sure that it can be dried. So it's a little light colored, maybe not the best for someone who might be homeless or, in a situation where their hat gets dirty a lot, but it'll be warm even if it doesn't stay clean. So this is 200 yards, so it's 2 door prize tickets, and it's a nice hat. Now I've knit this pattern a couple of times, and this is my second finished hat for the knit along for the Knit Girls. But I made Dennis a hat out of cashmere out of this pattern, and he's not as happy with this hat as I would like, the one I made him. The cashmere doesn't seem to have the bounce back, and he likes kind of a snug hat. He has a huge head, and so he's used to his hats being snug, I guess, and so I see some re-knitting in my future. He really likes the cashmere, and he's got very sensitive skin, so he thinks he wants the cashmere, but I'm thinking I might take that cashmere and re-knit him a hat that has maybe something a little woolier on the outside and maybe making it a 2-layer hat, because he does fold it over like this over his ears. So anyway, so this is not the first time I've knit this hat. And It's going into the SSK bin, wherever I can figure out that is, and I have to find the other hat that I finished because it's going in the bin too. I start with a long tail cast on, and it's so much easier to start your long tail cast on with 2 different yarns, and so you don't have to worry about if you've calculated enough. I try to, do my long tail cast ons from the inside and outside of the balls and that kind of thing. And so I thought a little alternate color, because this is the color of the last hat that I made. And my next hat will have a little gray, I think. So, but other than that, it's 2x2 ribs. I did the decreases better this time, I think. My last hat, the decreases did not look so good, but I think this is looking fine. So that's good. Anyway, I won't go on and on about that. Well, apparently I will, but I shouldn't go on and on about that hat because you've seen it before. The next thing I finished is my fish bell. This is by Isolde Teague. And I did the small size. It's really a scarf rather than a shawl. And I made this for a friend. I just finished it yesterday. I just got it off the block, so it has the strings. I haven't woven in the ends, but they're only 2. And this is made out of Craftsy Cloudborn alpaca wool silk in the prism colorway. I did the fingering size, which is more like a scarf than a shawl. And it is soft. And it doesn't feel itchy, which is good. It's got alpaca in it. And I recently made that sweater, that alpaca sweater that I thought was a little itchy. Oh, that turned out so nice. But before I realized that I thought that alpaca sweater was itchy, I bought myself a sweater's quantity of this yarn in this color. I love this color in DK to make myself a sweater. And then I discovered I think alpaca may be too itchy, but maybe not. I don't know if you can see. This yarn has all different kinds of colors in it. I see the colors like going in and out. It's very weird depending on how I hold this. But this yarn, each, has all different color threads, and I really, really like it. Like I said, I bought this exact same yarn in the DK weight for a sweater for myself. I might have bought 2 sweaters quantities. I overdid it. It was on sale. So anyway, I am so happy with how this turned out. I was very, very careful. When I'm making lace shawls for myself, if I get to some place where it looks like I'm off and I think I don't really care, I just fudge it and keep going. I did not do that with this. I must have had 10, that's an exaggeration, 7 lifelines in this. And I pulled back to the lifeline twice because I couldn't figure out where my count went off. And I believe that I did this the way it is supposed to be done. And I am so happy with it. I tried really hard. This was for a friend. I did start, and I don't know if you can see, the first inch or so on a size 6 needle, which is what it calls for. But I had recently discovered that I'm a loose knitter, and I don't swatch for shawls. I mean, my swatches are big fat liars anyway, so I'm not going to swatch for a shawl. But I realized that I probably need to go up, so I went up to a 7. So I did this on a 7, but I'm thinking I should have gone up to an 8. I think it's beautiful, but I had quite a bit of yarn left. So I had in my skein. So I think if I had gone up a needle size, this could have been bigger without adding more repeats. Now the pattern has 2 sizes. One, this size for fingering weight, and then another size shawl for lace weight, which, you know, says it takes 1,000 yards. Now, I did not have 1,000 yards, so I made the smaller size. And my friend lives in a temperate-ish climate, I think, where she doesn't get brutal winters like I do. So I'm hoping this will come in, will be useful for her. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. What a beautiful shawl. Isolde Teague. Belle. And I'm really happy with it, and I hope my friend likes it. And only 2 ends to weave in, which I haven't done yet. I finished this yesterday and blocked it last night, and it is ready to have a little weaving, and it will be giftable. So that's fun. So my third finished object I am wearing, and this is my Karina sweater. I talked about the Karina sweater last week. I had not cast it on. This is it, by Isabel Kramer. Isabel Kramer is one of the teachers at SSK, so I get points for knitting Isabel Kramer. So you know, you don't have to ask me twice. I love Isabel Kramer. I knit 2 Isabel Kramer sweaters last year. And I have a picture of me. I had Dennis take my picture right before I came up here. So here is me wearing this sweater. And I think I am going to go and take it off. Take it off so we can talk about it. But this is my sweater, and I am happy with it, but not ecstatic. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so here's my sweater. I want to make sure I don't get any lipstick on it. Now, as you can see from the picture, I hope I'm putting it back up there. It's quite long. And I wanted it longer. I'm not sure I wanted it this long, but I'm not sure. I kind of like it this long. It certainly isn't gonna look great on me in capris, but you know, let's face it, nothing looks that, you know, me in capris never look great anyway, so there's no big deal about that. But I asked Dennis, and he didn't think it was too long. So it's pretty long. Now, I did a gauge swatch, and I talked about the gauge swatch in the last podcast. This is the one that Pearl took outside. And so this is the fabric I got with the needle size that was recommended, which was a 4. Now, I like that fabric, but the gauge on the pattern is 23 stitches to 4 inches. And I got 30 stitches to 4 inches using that. And I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough yarn if I tried to do that. But it's a very nice gauge. And this is really drapey yarn. This is Francophine Knits yarn in the Provence base in the colorway Lichen. And the Provence base is 75% superwash merino, 25% mulberry silk. So this is a beautiful, slippery, drapey yarn. And so even at that tighter gauge, it would have draped beautifully. So then I did a size 6 needle here and realized right away I still wasn't getting the 23 stitches to the inch. So I went up to an 8. I knit this sweater on an 8 and got gauge. But this is a very, very light sweater. I mean, this is, it's hard to tell if you can see how see-through it is. It's not so see-through that I think I need to wear a cami under it, but you could see where my pants finished. You know, I was wearing navy blue pants, so you can see my waist. You know, it doesn't feel like it's sheer and I need to really worry about it, but It's a very light fabric. I mean, I can see you very easily. Well, I can't see you, but I can see my my phone. But I knew that was, ugh, itchy nose now. I knew that from my swatch that that's going to happen. But swatches, my swatches are big fat liars, you know, so I was a little nervous. Trusting my swatch. So you start this knitting process, knitting back and forth around the neck and everything, and you don't knit in the round till you get down to the V-neck in the front. So you're knitting for quite a ways back and forth. And so I started this sweater on a 7. I had found on another project I did, I think it was one of the Selgrees that I made, that my gauge really is very different when I'm knitting back and forth than it is when I'm knitting in the round. Which must mean that my purls are looser than my knits. Although when you look at the back of my knitting, it doesn't look uneven. I mean, when I'm knitting back and forth, it doesn't look uneven. You know, to me, maybe you can see something. I don't know. But I did notice when I was knitting the Selgree, because that starts with back and forth at the top, and then you go together again. And so I started this sweater on a size 7. When I was knitting back and forth on flat, I did the 7, and then I switched to an 8 for in the round. And I think I can't tell where I changed needles. Well, I don't know. Maybe I could tell now looking up really close, but I certainly didn't notice anything when I was wearing it. I think that was the right decision. Because I think it would have been quite noticeable if I had stayed with the 7, that my in the round would have been much denser than my back and forth. So, so that's one thing. So I knit this in the round on a size 8 when the pattern calls for a 4. Crazy pants. Now the cuffs and the hem are garter stitch, which I really like the look of. And I went down to a size 6 and knit these in the cuffs in the round in a size 6, which I also like the look of. But last night, it was late. I was trying to get finished. And I started to do the garter stitch at the bottom and in the size 6. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. I didn't see that I was supposed to change needles. And the pattern does not say to do the bottom of the body in the smaller needle. I looked twice. I didn't see it. Of course, I was tired. So it may have been there. I don't know. So I took it out and I went back to the size 8 and I did it in a size 8. I don't like it at all. It's like practically lace. So I am going to tear back the garter stitch border and knit it on the size 6 needle, and I think I'm going to be happier with it then. And I think I'm going to be happier in general with how the body looks on me then too. Well, that plus it's got all these strings hanging on. It looks sloppy. Now it's big on me. Even with the size 8 needle, I still wasn't getting 23 stitches to the inch. I was getting 25. So I ended up, and it's supposed to be lots of positive ease drapey sweater. And so I went up a size because I was still not getting quite gauge. Now, when I went back, get ahead of myself. So anyway, so it's a little bit big, I think, because, well, this morning because I blocked it last night under my ceiling fan, and this morning I went and double checked to see my gauge after I blocked it. And I got 23 stitches to the 4 inches with a size 8 on this sweater. So that's the thing that surprised me, because when I look at the pictures on this project, I don't see any sweaters that look to me as lightweight in terms of the gauge as mine. Now, maybe when I post a picture of mine, mine won't look like that either. Maybe I don't know. But anyway, so in the end, I ended up getting gauged. So I went up a size, and so it's a little bit big. So I probably could have gotten away with not doing that, but it's not so big. I mean, it's supposed to be big and drapey, and so that's fine. But one thing I noticed when I was, after I knit the first sleeve, I put the sweater on waste yarn. Well, actually, I had gotten try-it-on tubing by then, so I put it on my try-it-on tubing, which I'll try to remember to talk about. And I saw that the sleeve just seemed super, super baggy. So I tore that sleeve back to about here, and the decreases were, there were supposed to be 10 decreases, 10 rows in between each. Now, I don't know what my row gauge is on this. I only know what my stitch gauge was, and I suspect my row gauge is way off, and so I should have known better than to do anything by row instead of by dimension. So my last decrease was like right before my cuff, and the sleeve was way too big. So I tore it back to here, and I decreased every 5 rows and doubled the number of decreases from that point. So I would have had like 7 or 8 decreases to go, and I had 16. Oh, every five rows I decreased. And it still looks drapey. It's still not tight in any way, but it fits me a lot better. And I did the same thing with the other one. So I'm happy with the sleeves in terms of how tight they are. Now, I had been very happy with the length when I tried it on, and I thought that I knit it again to that same length, but apparently not, because when in that picture of me, I actually have the cuff completely folded up. So this sleeve is at least 2 inches longer than I really want, and even with that, it's a long sleeve. It comes down over my hand, which I like. I'm used to, because I have short arms and I'm used to my sleeves being long. But so I had the cuff folded over in that picture, and it was still long. So I'm thinking I might want to fix the sleeves, but since the ribbing is garter, I think I'm just going to leave it and wear it folded, and I think it looks fine, and leave it at that. And at some later date, I might feel like tearing it out and re-knitting that. I'll leave myself notes on my project page so that I know what to do if I want to do that. But I did a lot of knitting on this in the last 2 weeks. I mean, I knit this since I podcast last, and maybe it's because I just did a long time last night because I wanted to finish it and wear it. I mean, I blocked it at 1 o'clock in the morning. Luckily, it's very light, and I have an overhead fan in that room, and it dried. So, so I may just be tired of knitting on it and don't really want to think about it. Although I am very shortly going to be re-knitting the bottom, because that's just not working for me at all. And I think I'll be much happier with it once that's fixed. The yarn feels delicious. I really enjoyed the yarn through the whole process. It is pretty slippery between being superwash and having silk in it. It's pretty slippery. I really like the color. I alternated skeins for the body all the way down. I did not alternate skeins for the sleeves, and I'm sorry I didn't do that because I did get pooling. Particularly not that thrilled with this pooling. Because this does have a background color of kind of a mushroom to go with the cream. Now, if this were a more contrasty color, I would be reknitting that sleeve. Both the sleeves and alternating colors, but I think it's going to be okay, and I'm not going to do that right away because, like I said, I'm tired of knitting on it. So I won't make that mistake again. I thought it would be okay, but I did get pooling. So Melissa, Spicy Homemaker, if you're watching this, which I don't think you are, Melissa's making a sweater out of this yarn too. Same color. So I saw her on her podcast, Instagram. She said she was making one. So anyway, so be careful of the pooling. So the other thing that I don't love is I ended up, and I don't know how I did this. I don't know if you've been keeping track, but everything that I'm not particularly happy with seem to be decisions that I made. Other than the pattern not saying to switch needles, it should have, I'm sure it should have said that. Everything else is me and my knitting and how I'm knitting it. So I love Isabel Kramer, and I am going to knit this pattern again. I think I'm going to maybe try it in a DK or whatever, because I love the look of it. The whole time I was knitting it, I felt like my V-neck was off center. And when I wear it, it feels a little bit off center. And I don't know how I did that. And I think it looked fine, and I was happy with it. There are places that I'm going to tighten up. One of them is on one side of this V. It's looser than the other. I'm going to tighten that up. The other weirdness is that this center detail is a purl knit purl to run all the way down. But there's something about the way I knit that you don't see the second purl for most of it. You only see one purl. It's a little weird. So that makes it look a little off. I could stretch that when I blocked it, but I don't want to stretch it because it's already thin enough fabric. So anyway, there was something about the neck line of this where one side was tighter than the other. So this one is really loose, and this one is really tight. And I noticed it when I was picking up the stitches for the neckline. And I don't know if you can tell that. It seemed all right when I was wearing it, and I don't know what to do about that. I need to go back and think about what's going on when I'm making that piece, because you're knitting back and forth and you end up knitting 2 points essentially, and then you knit in the round, you add one more stitch for that center, and you've brought those 2 points together, and now you're knitting in the round. And there's something about the edge, one side of the edge is tighter than the other side edge. And I'm not sure what that would be, other than, you know, one side I'm knitting to that edge, and on the other side I'm knitting away from that edge. So, if that makes any sense. Anyway, next time I make this, I'll pay close attention to that aspect of the sweater, because I did notice that, especially, I mean, it wasn't noticeable to me as I was knitting in the round that I wasn't sure about that neck, because it felt like a little bit off. And then when I was picking up the stitches, I could see the edge of one was much looser than one side was much looser than the other side. And I don't know why that would be, because I'm knitting back and forth at that point. So when I make my next one, I'll pay attention to that and see why it felt like a little bit it went wrong. And that's the only thing I pinned on this. The tight side I pinned to stretch it a little bit. And the loose, you know, and otherwise I just laid this out. I actually squished it together because when I literally was doing this at 1 o'clock last night. And so I was tired. I had just finished it. I soaked it for half an hour or so. And then I put it in my washer on the spin cycle to get it all the water out. And when I took it out, it was very, you know, loose. And I could see that I was not going to be happy with the bottom of it. So that was already a drag. I'm like, oh, that's not right. Although now that I'm looking at it, I'm happier with it than I was last night. Ugh, I got a phone call. Who called? Nobody I know calls me on my cell phone. So as I'm trying to lay it out and everything, it's like very loose and very open, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and, you know, and it's too big, and I used a size 8 instead of a 4, and maybe that was a mistake, you know. So as I'm laying it out, I'm like pushing the stitches together, trying to make it less open, which is actually not typical when I'm doing a sweater. Usually I'm trying to make it wider so it fits me. Not this one. I'm trying to squinch it up. And I could see that the bottom was loose, and I'm thinking, you know, I shouldn't have done it on an 8. I shouldn't have believed my swatch. And so I wasn't feeling great about it when I went to bed, because I thought, you know, and then that's when I saw the pooling on the sleeves, so I didn't like the sleeves. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to reknit that whole sweater. I'm not reknitting it before April 30th, because it's going in the knit along the way it is. But I did take the measuring tape and I measured it, and it seemed like it was okay. And I measured the sleeves and I measured the bottom. Somebody gave me some good advice, and I'm not remembering who. I'm so sorry. You know, I need to find a sweater that I really like the dimensions of. And I haven't done that yet. And you'd think I'd do that before I finished a sweater, so that I know how long to make a sweater and how long of sleeves that I like, because clearly I have, you know, no idea, because I'm just knitting, you know. I need to do that. But anyway, I measured it, and you know, that calmed me down a little bit, so this may be okay. And actually I like the sweater. I don't hate the sweater, but I'm not ecstatic. So I'm going to reknit the bottom, even though it looks better to me right at this moment. I'm going to reknit the bottom, and I'll think about tearing back the sleeves and shortening the sleeves. And then I'm going to wear it, and I'll see how I feel in it, and see. It's a very light sweater. It's not super warm. So this is a fall, spring, summer sweater. You know, I get cold in the summer with air conditioning and that kind of thing. So I can wear this, I'm pretty sure, in the summer. So I am probably going to take this sweater to Chile with me in a couple of weeks when I go, because it's summer there. And we're going to be in all different climates, because we're going from the north of Chile, which is the Atacama Desert, which is high and gets cold at night, and then it's hot during the day, all the way down to the Patagonian fjords, which are cold. So I will have ample opportunity to wear a sweater like this, and a lot of my travel clothes are kind of khaki color, and so this will go with what I'm bringing. And I guess I'll know a lot more about how I feel about this sweater after that trip, because I will get some wear out of it, and I'll decide if Dennis is right and it's not too long, although I wish I could make that decision now because I'm tearing back that border, but that's okay. See if it drives me crazy that the sleeves are too long, because I can always redo them, and leave it at that. I don't think the pooling on the sleeves is going to bug me too much to make me want to go and reknit those sleeves again, because I reknit one So I've knit 3 sleeves. Probably don't want to knit 5. I think I'm going to be happy enough with it then. It feels like a dream. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and weave in all the ends. Oops. I did not do that. Oh, well, I didn't have time because I just took it off. I couldn't even try it on first thing this morning because it was still a little cool to the touch and I did not want to pick it up before it was dry. So, like I said, it's roomy, it's comfy, the yarn is divine. I really like the pattern, so I am going to try that pattern again, I think. But, you know, the thing is that I want my sweater to look like that. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. Well, I don't know. That's pretty close, I guess. Maybe it is a very light sweater. It is made with a light fingering. I mean, that's what she calls for, which is what this is. Yarn, turn. 221 yards for 50 grams. So it's the same, you know, 75% wool, 25% silk, which is what I used. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't actually have any Quince & Company yarns and have never used them. But, it sounds very similar to this yarn in terms of its makeup, which, because this is 75%. Now, that's not superwash wool, so that could make a difference. I don't know. But anyway, maybe I'll splurge and buy some turn and see what I end up with. But my guess is it's going to look a lot like this, because I could be wrong. These could all be very lightweight sweaters. But anyway, so I finished a sweater. So I finished my shawl, which I was only a little ways into when you saw it last. And I knit a sweater. And I'm going to find out how I feel about this sweater before I do anything drastic with it. So I'm going to weave in the ends in a way that I can pick them out again if I want to. And I'm definitely going to re-knit the bottom. I think I'll be happier. And I think that'll make a big difference, but I don't know. Does it sound like I like this sweater? I'm not sure. And I do like it. And it feels like a dream. And we'll see. Well, and after my trip, I will report back on how I feel about it. Because it's lovely yarn, and it's a really nice pattern. I really like the pattern. So if I'm not happy with the sweater, there are things to be done. But this is just too loose. So I'm going to fix that, and then I'm going to call it done. So, it may not be quite done. But I'm calling it finished because I washed and blocked it. That's, you know. So, anyway, I might just wear it again next time after I've fixed it. And I might even be able to report back then. Because I really do like it. And I enjoyed knitting with that yarn a lot. But last night I was laying in bed and I was a little unhappy with it after I was blocking it because I wasn't sure if it was going to fit. I mean, I thought it might be huge, too huge. Of course, I'm bigger. I'm always bigger than I think I am. So it wasn't too huge. It was nice and drapey and loose like the style is now. So but I was laying there unhappy and I realized my arm ached, my shoulder ached. I was knitting like a crazy person yesterday trying to finish that sweater. Well, I'm not sure I would be podcasting today if I hadn't finished it. I might have postponed recording because I was that close. So, those are my 3 finished objects. Both of the shawl and the sweater I finished yesterday and blocked yesterday. And I haven't knit anything this morning, so you won't be surprised to hear that I only have one whip that I've been working on, and this is my next my next hat. And this is the 2x2 ribbed hat by Ann Gagnon out of Brava, Knit Picks Brava, bulky. Worsted, not bulky, worsted. And so, like I said, I cast on with the gray, and it's purple. What are they calling it? Freesia, which I think is a kind of a flower, right? Anyway, it's pretty. So I guess I'm getting close to ready to start the decreases on that. So that's my only work in progress. We went to visit the kids on Wednesday, my son and daughter-in-law and my 2 granddaughters. And when I walked in, Allison said, "Oh, you left your knitting here last time." I said, "That can't be. That's impossible. Have you ever taken your knitting somewhere?" I haven't been to their house in over 2 weeks. Have you ever taken your knitting somewhere and not even known that you didn't have it for over 2 weeks? I couldn't believe it. And she brought out my sock bag that has my Christmas Eve cast on, and I had left it at my daughter-in-law and son's house over 2 weeks ago. Had no idea. Didn't know it was even missing. I guess that tells you how much I've worked on my socks. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, no, I can't. It must not be knitting. It must be something else, because there's no way I didn't notice I didn't have my knitting. Well, it turns out I'm not really knitting on those socks, because what would be my sock knitting, I'm now doing the hats for the knit along. And, you know, because that's my mindless, don't have to think about it, just sit and knitting. And I have not been picking up my socks over 2 weeks. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, nah, that can't be my knitting. I would have noticed if I didn't have knitting. Anyway, I just found this sitting here. This is the ball band for the Cloudborn for the shawl, in case you care, in the prism colorway. Okay, so my only work in progress at this moment, technically work in progress, is that hat. However, what the heck? I am so disorganized. Oh, here it is. But what is in my mind a work in progress is my next sweater, because I am going to start it this afternoon. I am going to make the Audrey sweater. This is another Isabel Kramer sweater. I saw this on Morris's podcast, Paige Brownberry. She has a wonderful podcast. If you haven't ever seen it, I highly recommend it. Now, I think it's pretty interesting that this pattern has no picture of the front. Isn't that weird? There are pictures of the front on Ravelry, but I do not have a device here to show you. It basically has, the fronts are 2 squares that, you know, if you closed them, then it comes down almost like double-breasted. It's like so each piece, so it opens and falls like a waterfall effect, or you close it. And I don't think it has buttons even. People are closing it with like a shawl pin. But the thing about this pattern, besides being Isabel Kramer, which I'm trying to do, is that this is called for on an Aran weight, but I'm pretty sure Morris is doing this in Cascade Ecological. And when I saw she was doing that, and I could be misremembering, but she was doing it in a yarn that made me say, oh my gosh, this is a bulky sweater. Now, it says it's for Swans Island worsted. but I'm showing you like you could read it. But Swan's Island worsted, but when you see in the pattern details, it says Aran. And she's doing it in a bulky. And it's a 2-color sweater. You do one color, and then you do a stripe, like a third of the sleeves, and a stripe down the bottom is another color. And guess who has bulky yarn that she loves in 2 colors? Yes, I do. So I'm like, okay, that's it. That's what this is going to become. So this is my ball of yarn right here. I'm going to be knitting this yarn again, and I am going to be making the Audrey. And I think that is going to be lovely. Now, this is the yarn I discovered that I thought alpaca was a little itchy on my skin, because when I tried this on, this is my quote-unquote worsted boxy, but this yarn is bigger than worsted, and it looked terrible on me. So I decided I was going to make it into a cardigan. Enter the Audrey. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to be knitting my Audrey along with Mars. And so this afternoon, I will be taking this sweater apart and turning it into an Audrey. That's my plan. So that is not technically a whip, but I will be working on it today. So it is very, very close to being a whip. But that's my next sweater. So... and I just jumped right in and I made some notes. Last week I forgot. And I'm so sorry, Linda. I forgot to say thank you to Linda, who sent me the most delicious set of teas from David's Tea, which I have been enjoying. And it is like the dessert teas that have all these different amazing flavors. And I forgot to bring it up here. I'm the worst. I am so sorry. I'll take a picture of it and put it here because it's really lovely. And the nice thing about it is it has like nutrition information about each of the teas in the box, which I had gotten a collection of teas from David's Tea a while ago, and there was no information in it. And I had been worried about these teas because I see people having lovely teas that sound delicious, but it's pretty clear that, you know, they use peppermint candies and they, you know, chocolate. And so these teas are not calorie free, which means they, and those calories are sugar. So that means that they're carbs. And I'm trying to do low carb. Dennis is so much better at doing low carb than I am. But that's a whole nother story. So I was really glad to have the nutritional information about these teas. So yes, they do, some of them have calories, some of them have like 10 calories, which means they have 1 or 2 carbs in them. But, you know, I can have 1 or 2 carbs sometimes. It's not a, you know, horrible big deal. And it's good to know. So I really appreciated having that. But these are yummy teas and I'm really enjoying them. And I wanted to say thank you so much, Linda. Linda's in our group and she sent me a lovely present and I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I've been trying all these wonderful, wonderful teas, and I've been trying to keep notes so that I know what I want to order next time I order from David's Teas, because I order from David's Teas sometimes. But I'm mostly looking for very low or no caffeine because I do take my caffeine in coffee form for the most part. So the other thing that's going on is I am participating in FiberShare again. They do that several times a year. And I had such a wonderful FiberShare experience my first time. I thought, of course, I want to do it again. And that's how I met Mane, who I am going to meet in a few weeks when I go to Chile. I'm going to meet her in Santiago, and I'm so excited. And so, you know, being able to meet new people all around the world is amazing. you know, and it's funny when you tell people who are not in the internet knitting community that you have friends you've never met, they think you're crazy, but I have friends I've never met. I do. And some of you are out there watching. And hello. So I'm hooked up with let's see, I'm sending my package to a lovely young woman who has a podcast, and now she started her podcast under the name of Chelsea Knits, but she's changed it to Woolen Cat, I think. She has an Etsy shop, Woolen Cat. I'll put it down here. I'll look it up and put it down here. And she's the one who I am sending to. And I got an email this morning, which I haven't had a chance to respond to, from a woman in Vermont who is sending me my package. So I'm very excited. So the way FiberShare works is the rules are that you must send at least 200 grams of fiber or yarn in your package. That's the minimum, and that's the only rule about what goes in the package. And you fill out a little questionnaire about what you like and what you want and your information, and pay $7 for the work in the matching. And if people do not get a package, if someone, you know, I don't know, if a package goes astray or someone doesn't send the package they're supposed to send, they have emergency packages that they use the $7 for, among other things, to make sure that everybody gets a FiberShare package. So you pay $7 and you fill out a questionnaire, and a few weeks later you get an email saying, this is the person you're sending to, and this is how they answered their questionnaire, and this is the person who's sending it to you. And you don't get much information about the person who's sending to you, but their name and their Instagram, so you can follow them and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm looking forward to doing that. I've already started the process of gathering my package for Chelsea, and I won't talk about it in case she figures out I have a podcast. And I don't want to ruin the surprise. Although it doesn't have to be a surprise. You know, it's not like a Christmas present. It doesn't have to be a surprise. I mean, you do really want to make sure that the person getting your package likes what they get. So it doesn't have to be a surprise. But I did learn a little bit. I watched several of her podcasts and learned some things that will help me. And I will be emailing her in case she has other information that will help me to send a package that she will like. And I will be answering the questions that I got from my person who's sending to me. So that's one thing I'm doing. So that's fun. I love getting things in the mail, and you know, there are more ways to do it than just order stuff. And I need to institute those things. So I will be, maybe I should just be organizing swaps. Would you guys be interested in doing some swaps within the group? Because I love opening packages, and I'm perfectly happy to make together a package and swap. So if anybody wants to do a swap, and we can, you know, set some guidelines for the swap so everybody's happy with what they get, you know, maybe, you know, one skein of yarn and some minis and one or two, you know, and a tool or a notion kind of a thing, and some other goodies. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. If anybody is interested in doing a swap and has some ideas about a swap or a particular kind of swap that they'd like to do, let me know, because I love getting stuff in the mail, and I'm just as happy to not, you know, shop. Although I already ordered something to put in my FiberShare package. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So the last thing I want to talk about is knit-alongs. Now, we've been having the Knit Tiny Things knit-along for over a year now, because I totally forgot to close the thread and pull a prize last time. And so I've just done it, and it's a little bit ironic, which I will tell you why. But, so I closed that thread for the Knit Tiny Things. But I still want to be knitting tiny things, although now I'm knitting sweaters and I haven't knit a tiny thing for a while. So I want to think about another knit along, and I'm open to suggestions. I did have one good suggestion about maybe making it a monthly goals instead of a year-long thing, and maybe, you know, having more parameters around it or something. I'm not sure. So I want to think about that, if it makes any sense. If I'm just not going to do it, then maybe I just don't do it. I don't know. And I'm all about knitting sweaters, and it feels like we should be having a sweater knit along. So if anybody else is interested in knitting sweaters, let me know, because I'm happy to put together a package of fancy prize package for a sweater knit along if anybody would like one. Like to do a sweater knit along. So let me know. That's also going to be a year-long knit along, because I'm all about 2018 is the year of the sweater. I'm so excited. So think about that and let me know what you, if you have any interest. If not, fine. I understand. Sweaters are big and not everybody's cup of tea. But let me know if you have any interest. And it's ironic that because I closed the thread and we had 175 posts in our year-long thread. Some of them were chatting. It was a FO chat thread. It didn't matter. So I asked Siri to pick a number from 2 to 175. And she picked 165, which in a way it's good, because that's somebody who's posted since the last time the prizes were done. But it turned out it was Simona Maloney. And she may have gotten a prize before, I'm not sure, but she posted a lot of things in that thread. And it was Simona Maloney who reminded me that I hadn't pulled a prize and closed that thread. So I thought it was pretty ironic that she's the one who I picked. And so Simona, you're the winner, and I had just picked this yarn to be the prize, and I was going to put in stitch markers, and I still will if you want them, but I know you already have stitch markers from me, so if you would like something else, maybe we can talk about your prize. But so this is Rain City Knits sock yarn. It's a 75-25, and the colorway is Wasabi. I love that green. It's a great green. Anyway, congratulations, Simona, and thank you so much. Simona did a cupcake of the month, and she did all kinds of other stuff, but the winning post was your November cupcake with Olympia posing with your November cupcake, and it was very cute. So thank you so much. Oh, so anyway, so the last thing is goodies, and I have some goodies, and I just saw my note. One of the goodies I bought myself was I got the Try It On tubing, because I'm going to be doing a lot of sweater knitting, and people have talked about this Try It On tubing, and I got this at Machine Knitting to Die For, which is kind of a funny name, and basically what it is 2 yards of this tube, just a tube, and you stick your knitting needle end in that tube. Do I have any knitting needles in here? Surely I have a knitting needle somewhere. Okay, so you stick your knitting needle in the end, and then you slide your stitches out onto this tube. And so this takes the place of waste yarn. And so then it's easy to just slide your stitches back onto your needle and you can go. That's the theory. However, it's way easier to get the stitches back on your needle with this tubes. There is no two ways about that. But I am a tight knitter. And even though this tube is smaller than the shaft of my needle, getting my stitches over that little tiny bump, can you see that? There's a little tiny bump there because you've got a tube on the end, was tough. I had to move each stitch out onto this tubing. Now, if you're a looser knitter, you probably do not have that issue. So that was one thing. So moving it onto the tube for me, because I'm such a tight knitter, was something of a problem. And I had started out, they have two sizes, one from 2 to 8, and this one is 8 to 13. And I'm not sure. I have this one in the bag, so I guess I used the 8 to 13. I'm not sure why I didn't use the 2. I tried them both, and this one worked best. I think the other one, maybe the needle didn't go in very far and it didn't feel secure enough. I'm not sure. So it took me quite a while to get my stitches on the tube. But it didn't take any time at all to get them off the tube, and that was nice. So when you go on waste yarn, you know, it doesn't take that long to get it on the waste yarn, but it takes a while to get it back onto your needles. But the other thing, this was such a drapey sweater that this kind of stiff tubing did not give me a good idea of how the sweater was going to fit. I mean, it certainly let me know that it was going to fit, that it was going to be, you know, go over my boobs and, you know, that it was big enough. But I didn't get a sense of how it would drape using this tubing. And for this particular sweater, I think that would have been nice. But it wasn't necessary. I mean, you know, it depends on why you're trying it on, you know. If you're trying it on to see how it's going to drape, and if it's, you know, then the tube being so stiff didn't facilitate that. But if you're just trying to see, does it go over your hips and that kind of stuff, this is good. So I'm glad to have it. But I was surprised that because of how tight I knit, I did have trouble getting it onto the tubing. But it is nice to get it off really quick, and that worked great. So mixed reviews on the try it on tubing. I got both sizes, and I'm not sorry I have it. And it wasn't expensive. I think it was $6. You know, and it's 2 yards. Anyway, little product review, but that was one thing that I bought since I saw you last. The other things I bought were, I bought some patterns. I bought this Audrey pattern, and I don't have a good picture of this, but I bought the Pewkiu, this, and I didn't print in color, and I'm so sorry, Marcella. This is Marcella Chang's latest pattern. It is a very interesting shaped triangular shawl with tassels that that she designed, and I'm very excited about this. I'm hoping I might be able to meet Marcella. She's in Santiago too. But she does the Chili Knits podcast with Connie of Chili Knits. And so I ordered 2 skeins of yarn from Connie to make this. And one of which was named Pearl. How could I resist? And I'm going to pick them up from Connie when I'm in Santiago. And I'm going to bring my pattern, and I am going to knit this shawl, and I will learn how to pronounce it. Pewkiu. This is native Chilean, the people, a word, and I forget what she says it means, from the people who lived in Chile before. It's a Mapudungun. Mapudungun is the language that means I carry you in my heart. What a lovely thought. And there's her modeling the shawl. These are people who lived there before the Spanish invaded Chile. And so I thought, how gorgeous and how fun, while I'm in Chile, to knit a completely Chilean project with Chilean yarn and a Chilean pattern. So I'm going to do that. So I bought that pattern. And the other thing I got is Maria of Ninja Chickens does natural dyeing. And she's been doing beautiful sock blanks lately. And I have one other sock blank that I forgot to bring in to show you. But I had seen Morse again of Brownberry. I guess I'm just going to do what Morse does because I like what she does. I'm such a follower. So Morse from Hey Brownberry podcast is a friend of Maria's. And she got these naturally dyed sock blanks and made a summer t-shirt, a summer top out of them. And I thought it was so beautiful. I decided I wanted to do that too. So I had bought one because it was lovely. And I ended up buying 2 more. So this one has a lot of blue or purple. I didn't realize it had so much purple and blue. I guess it doesn't really matter because it's going to be speckled. And this one is dyed with madder, cochineal, logwood, marigold, maple, black walnut, and butterfly pea flower. Holy cow. So look at all those natural things, and she just lays them out, and she, I guess you need to watch her podcast to find out how she does it. And the other one I got was this, and this is eucalyptus leaves. So they're 80% superwash wool, 20% nylon. And so, and I have another one. So these are going to be, I don't know if I'm going to fade them or stripe them or, who knows how they're going to look together and what this is going to be like. But I'm going to make myself. So I have 3 of them, which should be enough. They have 420 yards each. So that means I have 1,260 yards. Should be more than enough to make myself a lovely summer sweater. And that's what I'm going to do. I wonder if I can make a karina out of that. I have for my karina, which is the one I finished, I do have quite a bit of yarn left. I had 4 skeins of that. And I do have, I have everything in little baggies. People have those ball sacks. So this is how much, and I have to go and weigh this because I need to know how many yards I used, just because I need to know how many yards I used for my SSK thing. But I also want to know, because I might be able to do a karina if I wanted to. Of course, it will look, actually, it will look a lot like this if I do, because this is gonna, because these, they come out speckled when you take them apart. I don't know if you have used a sock blank or not, but it has a pattern on it, but then when you knit it, it turns out to be speckled. It doesn't, it doesn't do a pattern. So I guess I want to do something different than the karina, because otherwise I'll have 2 natural with speckled versions of that sweater. And I guess I don't really want that. So anyway, so I got 2 beautiful naturally dyed sock blanks. And the idea is that I'm going to put it together with my other one that I have and do something, make a big project. This is the year of the sweater, so everything is about how can I turn it into a sweater. And my other thing I got was my first month. I signed up for the Crafty Toads, the Toad Hollow Yarn of the Month Club, a year at the museum. And this is the paper. And that is the picture that was their inspiration picture. And it's an ancient Egyptian papyrus, which I'm so into Egypt these days. I could not possibly resist. I think they just picked it because they knew it would suck me in. So I signed up for 3 months. Next month is going to be Arthur's Tomb, which should be really beautiful. Look at those colors. But I'm very into these days, into these neutrally colors. And this is the yarn. Isn't it beautiful? I'm so tempted to say, I want this in a sweater's quantity. I gotta stop that though. I have a lot of sweaters quantity, but isn't that beautiful? I really love it. Then they call it the chess game because the lion and the goat are playing chess. So they call it the chess game. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, that's it. I love it, ladies. I am such a fan. I am so impressed with you guys, and you're dying because I love your yarn. And this is in the Drusilla base, which I also like. It's an 80-20 superwash merino nylon, which, you know, when I go back to knitting socks, you know, that's my preferred sock base. So, but it also makes a beautiful shawl. So anyway, oh, one more thing. I bought myself the Opinionated Knitter. Someone was talking about this, and it has the baby surprise jacket in it. And basically, if you're not familiar with it, Elizabeth Zimmerman had a newsletter in the 70s and 80s, I guess. And they're basically reprinting the newsletter. And the newsletter contained a pattern almost every time. And then they're showing these beautiful, beautiful... There she is, Elizabeth Zimmerman. So I got this. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but it was newsletters from 1958 to 1968. Oh, never mind. Not the 70s. I think she did it in the 70s, but this is the very early stuff. But it contains the baby surprise jacket, which I actually bought 3 or 4 years ago and have never made. And I bought it in... hard copy form from Schoolhouse Press, and I have no idea where it is, which is why I shouldn't do that. And I don't buy patterns at yarn shops because I need to have them in Ravelry or I won't know where they are. So anyway, that's it for today. Congratulations, Simona. I do have your information. And thank you everybody who participated in the Knit Tiny Things knit along. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed seeing your tiny things, and I appreciate the encouragement, even though I did not succeed in my goal. And thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate the community, the knitting community that I have found here, and I cannot tell you how much it means to me. So I hope you have lots and lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy. And thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.